Welcome to Healthy Communication, everybody. Mark Elder here. Today, we're talking healthy communication because I've learned over the years how important healthy communication is. Some of you may know a little bit about me. I've struggled with my mental illness the majority of my life. In 2004, I had an attempted suicide, which actually took my vision and resulted in a traumatic brain injury. I've never once attempted again before, and over the years, I've learned healthy communication skills because I realized and put it together, a lot of my struggles in my youth, a lot of the reason for my attempted suicide was because of my poor communication. I didn't know how to do healthy communication until over the recent years through therapy and addressing things, I learned communication is important. Everyone, you have three forms of communication. You have passive, you have assertive, you have aggressive. Assertive is where you want to be in the middle. You want to be in the middle with assertive. Passive and aggressive are actually two unhealthy forms of communication. That's where I used to be. I used to be very passive and sometimes play around with passive aggressive until it gets to the point where Mark would just explode and be aggressive and angry. And I eventually learned how to find myself in assertive communication, everybody, finding that balance in the middle. I was passive with my communication because I had low self-esteem. I have insecurity issues. When people were saying and doing things to hurt me, I had a hard time actually confronting them because I had a hard time with the conflict. If they're already saying and doing these things, I already kind of felt like they didn't love me or care about me. If I confronted them, I felt like I'm just going to really find out the harsh reality that I don't want to hear, and it's going to be even worse. So that was my insecurities too. So that's why I was passive. I didn't know how to directly confront someone and say something to them because I was worried I wasn't going to like the way that they were going to respond. I didn't feel like I was important enough. I really just felt like this is what I deserve. I'm just gonna deal with it. It was very normal for me to just shut down. When things happened I didn't like, I would shut down and basically just hang my head and not confront the person or talk about it. I wouldn't bring it up. I wouldn't talk about it because I didn't want to address it again, and I didn't want to find out what I didn't want to hear. So it was easy for me to just shut down and not want to deal with it. I didn't want to accept it and deal with it, and I didn't want to hear their responses. So I just left it alone, and I would let people just kind of trash me and walk on me and do things. And not saying anything or standing up for myself was easy for it to continuously happen. Eventually, I started playing around with passive-aggressive behavior, which was just as bad. Because to be honest, I was passive. I didn't know how to speak to people and communicate things. I didn't know how to say, like, hey, I didn't like what you just said. That offended me. I took that personally. Please don't do this again. I didn't like what you just did to me. That invaded my personal space. I don't like it. I didn't know how to say things and communicate things to people. When they would say something or do something that hurt my feelings, I would just internally kind of shut down and just hang my head and walk away and kind of pretend like it didn't bother me. But at the same time, in my body language and the things I did, I would show them it did bother me. I was passive in the way I reacted to them, but I was aggressive in the way I reacted to myself. I would walk away, and it was very normal for me to be very, very self-harming. I would hurt myself or just be extremely aggressive and explode and just literally start punching things and then come back to the situation, and they could tell my hands are bleeding or I cut myself and hurt myself. I could tell that I damaged myself and hurt myself. So it was aggressive behavior towards them, but not direct. It was passive-aggressive because it wasn't directly towards them. I wasn't being in their face and everything. I was shutting down and being passive and just kind of being submissive and just avoiding the confrontation, but yet showing in my body language and doing something that there was confrontation I wanted to resolve, and I was being aggressive and angry, but not in a productive way. It wasn't towards the situation. It wasn't towards confronting it or meeting in the middle. It wasn't addressing the conflict. It was mostly just attempting to show them I wasn't happy and hoping they would read my mind and come approach me and talk to me about it. I didn't want to address it. I didn't want to address the conflict or bring it up. I wanted them to bring the conflict to me, address it, and so I could feel like they're the ones actually addressing it, so I don't have to bring it up and do anything. So it was passive. I didn't know how to bring it up or do it, but I would be aggressive behavior to ask them to come address the situation. You got to realize people aren't going to read your mind. I mean, people in general are just selfish. It's easy for people to be very, very selfish and just think about themselves. They don't know how to recognize and see signs in people, and they also just don't want to deal with it. They're just going to be like, oh, this guy's acting weird. He's not talking to me about it, and I'm just walking away. So people when there's not good communication, they don't know how to address it or talk about it. They don't want to put themselves in the middle as well. So that's why passive aggressive was not healthy for me, because it was also, the aggression was towards myself. I was physically hurting myself because I didn't like something that happened. And rather than addressing that, I would take the anger out on myself. Again, I did nothing wrong, so it wasn't fair for me to take it out on myself when I was just trying to find a way to have some communication with people and just kind of to figure it out what happened. Because that's the reason why my attempted suicide happened in 2004. I was feeling disrespected and didn't like what was happening between me and my significant other. I didn't feel like there was communication. I didn't know how to say, I'm not liking this, why am I getting disrespected? I physically hurt myself and came back to this situation and I wasn't getting a response I liked. When I got home, I put a gun to my head. That wasn't going to resolve the situation. It wasn't going to actually help me address anything or get my needs met and feel respected, because after my attempted suicide, all those people walked out of my life anyway. So basically that passive aggressive behavior did nothing productive. I was passive and didn't say and communicate what I needed to, my needs. I was hurting myself, really hurt myself, and in the end, I didn't get to communicate what I wanted to. I didn't get my needs met. I wasn't feeling respected. That's why in the end, everybody, assertive communication is really important. Assertive. Now, being assertive is in the middle. You're not being passive. You're not just shutting down and not communicating. You're not being passive aggressive where you're just not communicating but showing in your body language in other ways. And you're not being full-blown aggressive where you're just running, knocking the door in, throwing things and yelling at people. Because that's another thing. No one wants to help an angry, irate person. When you have aggressive communication, that's all it is. It's just aggression. It's just anger. Your face is red. Your blood pressure is high. You can't really have full sentences or full thoughts. You're not communicating things very well because you're just full-blown angry. You're seeing red. You're seeing red, so you're angry and you're not going to communicate what you want well. You're really going to say some things you might not like. You might be using bad language where you're saying a lot of you statements. You're just literally pointing fingers at people and getting angry. And you have the right to be angry, but when you're angry and you're red in the face and you're screaming things and being irate, people aren't going to want to listen to you. They're not going to want to listen to you. They're not going to want to take you seriously because they're just thinking, wow, this dude's just blowing off steam. Somebody cut him off on his car right here. He's got some issues he's got to work through. When you're not acting professional, no one's going to really want to talk to you. You know, when you're shutting down and you're thinking people are going to read your mind and know exactly what to say and what to do to you or how to apologize. No, when you're being just full-blown aggressive and angry and kicking down doors and throwing things at people, people are going to want to hide under a desk. They're not going to want to talk to you. They don't think there's going to be a rational way to discuss it with someone in that mentality. That's why everybody, when you want your help, when you want to communicate things, be assertive. Meet in the middle. Don't shut down and don't get angry. Use I statements. Be like, hey, you know what? This is how I feel. This is what I noticed happened. This is the experience I had. When I came into this, I was expecting this. I thought this was going to happen. I feel disrespected. And again, if you saw my previous video about professionalism, I statements there. That's a big thing with assertive communication, is you're using I statements. You're not using you statements. You're not pointing fingers, yelling at people, getting angry, or you're not pointing any fingers and just shutting down. You're meeting in the middle. It's good to use those I statements so you're not making people angry, and it's good to use facts. When you're passive, you're shutting down because you're depressed. When you're aggressive, you're blowing up at people because you're angry. That's emotional. It's not good to use emotional conversation. It's hard for people to take you seriously when you're being emotional. It's good when you come in level-headed and rational. It's good to speak facts when you're being assertive that, hey, look, this is how I felt. This is what happened. This is why I felt this way. I really feel like it should be addressed this way. I feel like I should be respected in this manner. You're using I statements. You're, again, just stating facts. It's not just how you feel. It's not like I felt this happened. Like, no, I walked into the room. This is what was said to me, and this is what was done. That is not an appropriate thing to say considering these manners. It's really, really good to actually use these I statements. It's really good to use facts and not emotional, so people will actually listen to you, hear what you have to say, and address it in a professional manner, because they will also address it with facts. When you're coming in there screaming and yelling and being angry, people are going to want to do the same thing. They're going to want to yell and get angry at you. It's like fighting fire with fire. And when you want results and you just completely shut down, you're not going to get anywhere just shutting down like that. No one is going to know how to read your mind and try to No one's going to want to ask a lot of questions and try to pull information out of you. They're going to be like, okay, Mark doesn't look too happy. Something's going on with him. I'm gonna give him some space. He doesn't look like he wants to talk to anyone right now. He doesn't look happy. I'm giving Mark space. I'm walking away. Somebody might have did something. No one's gonna know how to approach that person. Like, oh, Mark's sad. I gotta go talk to him. Mark doesn't look happy. How can I make it better? People are selfish, and they're just gonna be like, Mark's dealing with some shit. I'm walking away. I'm not gonna go put myself into his shit. That's Mark's stuff. He's not happy. Let him deal with it. People, passive behavior is not good to get help. It's not good to actually ask for help that way and hope people notice the signs. It's not good to actually have that passive aggressive behavior. When your passive behavior isn't working and you start to play around with that aggressive behavior, going to the other spectrum, hoping people are going to notice and it's going to help, because it's not. Those two opposite spectrums, they're far away from each other, and on those sides of the spectrum, people aren't going to want to help you. Find a good assertive way to talk to people. Be assertive. Know your rights, know your needs, and know that when you communicate it with someone, when you actually look them in the eye and address it and conversate with them about it, they're going to look you in the eye and address it, and they're going to respect you and respect your wishes, everybody. Healthy communication, everyone. It's important. Trust me, if I have learned how to communicate healthy, anybody can. If I can learn to love myself and be happy, if I can be assertive in my communication and let people know my needs and my rights, anybody can do it. I want you guys to know you can do it. I don't want you to be sad and passive. I don't want you to feel like people don't love you. I don't want you to be angry and do things that you regret. I want your needs to be met, and I want you to be able to communicate things with people that you need, everybody. Everybody assertive. Assertive communication is very healthy and important. I wish you the best in your assertive communication.
It's been emotional.
Everyone, love and respect yourself. Have good, healthy communication. Make good choices, everybody. I'll catch you on the flip side.